Record to this computer. There we go. Okay. And yeah, no, great question about the slides as well. We can absolutely share them. We're taking a recording as well now so that anyone who misses it, or maybe you miss part of it or anything like that, you can catch up on it. So, all right. So I'm going to actually turn it over to Dr. Tom Drysdale, who's going to open up for us. And then you're going to hear from a couple different people.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the open house for the IMS graduate program. I'm really pleased to be here because I'm a member of the program and I teach one of the courses, and I've really enjoyed it while I'm doing so, but I'm also Associate Dean for grad and postdoc studies here at Schulich. And so sort of in overall sort of oversight over the program as well. It's been a lot of fun. And I think what is really exciting about this program is how innovative it is. And I'm sure everyone else is going to go into that in a little bit more detail. But all I'll say is that the School of Medicine and Dentistry here at Western was really interested in developing course-based masters because there was a real demand for it from students. And many of us were reluctant to do so. But what we did in the end was we sat down and said, okay, if we're going to offer it, what would we offer? And what is it that students are looking for? And so we came up with this program. Largely Dr. Campbell was the main design person behind it. And what we were really trying to do is trying to figure out what are the skills that would be needed for a career in medical sciences, and how can we provide those? And so this course does not teach, advanced physiology. This does not teach biochemical methods. What this course does is it provides skills. Many of them are what are called soft skills, but these are the things that actually should help you in trying to develop a career in medical sciences. And so I think we've managed to do so. And it's been really exciting to see our first class is now graduated. We're well into the way of our second year of students. And it's really exciting to see the participation and camaraderie among the students as they develop these skills. It's very different from undergrad. And I think it tries to bring out the best in the students that are participating. And so I'll leave it to others now to provide you a bit more detail. But as I said, I teach in this course. It's been really enjoyable for me. And I think if you talk to the students in the program, they've really got a lot out of it too. So I'll hand it over to Nicole.
Amazing. All right, everyone. So yeah, so we're excited to share some different pieces with you and also just allow you to hear from some different members that are part of this. I mean, I am just one person who helped out with a lot of this. And I think a lot of the reasons it's been so successful is because we have this incredible team who's been dedicated to the mission. We've had amazing students. So I think, just seeing how many people are online here tonight is really, really nice. I think, the program is different, and I think it attracts students who are on board with that and they want to push to have a slightly different education model. So I'm going to go ahead and just share with you quickly. We've got this 1 minute, I think it's 1-2 minute video that gives a little bit of an overview, but then we're going to go in and talk about these pieces as well. All right, everyone. So that's just a quick little video. Whoops, we're going to keep going. Come on, come on. Next slide. Oh, geez. It's sticking and then not moving. Okay. So, a quick big picture overview, but we're going to kind of unpack all those different pieces and talk about them a little bit more in depth. And we really want to answer your questions. I think that's the main piece of this that we need to address. So the first thing is when we think about this program and when we were putting it together, we really wanted to focus on, an identity for it. And so people often hear the term interdisciplinary. Maybe you're part of our undergrad program, or maybe you've just heard about it in terms of, areas of research focus or anything like that around you. And so for us, interdisciplinary is a complex thing. It means a few different pieces. And, traditionally, when we think about interdisciplinary, we think about bringing together different disciplines, right? So that's kind of the content piece. But I think for me, what I like to also emphasize to students is it's also this piece of diversity where we're bringing together different people as well. And then the third piece of the puzzle for me is that I think that, in today's society and with education models, that I think educators have a bit of an obligation to really think beyond just the academic domain for students and really foster the personal, the professional domains as well. So this is kind of a little visual that our graphic designer came up with for this identity. And I really like it because it reflects these pieces quite nicely. So where content, people, and then different domains come together. And that's what we really focus on throughout the year of the program. So many programs, right? They'll all have their goals, their objectives, right? All that kind of stuff. And so for us, we have quite a few of them. And one of the biggest ones for us is this idea of breadth. So you can imagine when you hear about interdisciplinary, that likely is going to mean that you're going to cover a variety of topics as opposed to going in depth with one. And so this can mean different things. You can see them listed here, whether it's the approaches that are taken, a little bit about knowledge translation, talking about the ethical implications of research as well. And no matter what, our goal, one of our common goals early in the design was generate scientific literate individuals. So we believe that even though you may not go on to have a career, for example, in academia, where you're a bench-side researcher or something like that, we believe that our students are going to be consumers of research. And so that means that you should also have this literacy about it. And so whether you maybe go on to be a doctor or a pharmacist, or you're going to work for a business consulting company, no matter what, you're going to have some involvement with research. And we want to make sure that you are understanding that information and that you're also aware of who's involved, right? And how do things go from, for example, bench to bedside and things like that. The other thing is that, we wanted to make sure this program was engaging. We wanted to make sure it was authentic. And so we do that by really focusing on a lot of thought-provoking topics. And so we want you to develop these different skills, and we do it in a way that we think engages the students. So you're not going to come and sit in, for example, just a bunch of lectures. You're going to come and be part of an area around a table where you're discussing and you're offering your insights as well. Obviously, interdisciplinary thinking is really important. We're going to talk about that when we get to our wicked problems as well, and how really, complex problems require interdisciplinary thinking. As Dr. Drysdale said, we are a course-based masters, but that doesn't mean we can't have experiential learning opportunities. And so when we sat down and thought about those, we wanted, again, there to be a breadth of experiences. So that means working with a basic science lab partner, a community partner. And then the third one is also a clinical research partner as well. And so again, this allows students to really see the different aspects that are involved behind research. And then the last piece, but definitely not least, really pushing the skill development and thinking about personal and professional development. So here's kind of just a quick nod to the different, when Dr. Drysdale was talking about those soft skills, and we like to think of them as core interdisciplinary skills. So these are skills that no matter, what you're studying or what you go on to do in a profession, we think that they're important, and we really make them the emphasis of our program. So you can see things: communication, problem solving, decision making, working in teams, leadership, project management, and critical reflection. And so those are all emphasized throughout the program. If you go on our website or if you've explored it, you would see there's the lineup of curriculum. So we've got our 7 learning blocks. So what that means is that instead of having, multiple courses at one time, you are immersed in a course at a time. And again, that there's different, advantages to that model. But anyways, there's the 7 block courses. You can see they range communication, science policy, ethics, professionalism, and so forth. So really trying to cover that holistic view of medical science research. We've got our rotations, and then we've also got 2 courses that are more focused on skill development. And so that's collectively what a student would be taking throughout the year in the program. If you're a visual person and you kind of like to see how is this all going down, you can see in yellow, there's the block courses. So they're spread all the way from June, September, and some in the fall, and then a couple in the winter. These, are roughly referred to as seminars. They're not really, traditional seminars, but just to kind of distinguish them from the blocks. You've got basic clinical rotations, the community one going a little bit lengthier throughout both terms there. And then throughout the background of everything is an e-portfolio, which we'll talk about as well. One thing, though, that I like to make sure that we mention, because I don't know about all of you, but, being in undergrad and just being in education systems, the assessment piece can be a struggle for students, but also a struggle for educators. And so when we were pitching kind of this innovative 21st century program, one of the pieces that I was really vocal about was that, okay, we can't do all these novel things and then just assess, traditional methods. So one of the things that you would find out if you were in our program is that we really try to push, again, for a more authentic experience that way as well. So the first year we ran the program, we were giving out, percentage, so number grades. Now we've moved to alpha or letter grades, and we feel as though that has really allowed students to engage more in that intrinsic learning, wanting to learn for the sake of learning, as opposed to the, maybe the number on the transcript. And so what we do is we have a model where we have assessments in a course, we have participation in a course, and so we call that the term work. But then at the end of every single course, students write a progress report. And really what that is it's a 1-page, 500-word summary of, what you learned, but also a little bit of a digging deep into the reflection side about, maybe what you learned about yourself, some of the skills, if you got an assignment back and it maybe wasn't where you wanted to be in terms of achievement, how you went back and fixed it up. And then you actually pitch your grade to us, right? And so you build this evidence, you build this case for yourself about where you think that you stand in the course. And this is a really important piece for me because I think, we need to give students that voice. We want to be building confidence in our program. And so I think there's this self-advocacy piece that we don't see enough in education. And so that's been really nice for me. But the other piece of it is that, as you know, being in an undergrad program, there's so much learning that goes on beyond the syllabus, beyond the pieces in the course. And so I think this takes a little bit more of an authentic model of what you would see, for example, when you go out into your careers, right? So we no longer have like this presentation is worth 5% or 10%. Instead, we say these are the elements in the course and we think they're all important. And yeah, maybe some of the earlier ones, you learn from them, you apply that feedback and you progress and you do better. And that's going to show up in your progress report. So just a little bit of a nod to the assessment, because I think it's important to acknowledge that as well. So we do end of course, and then we also do term progress reports. And I love those. That's where students get to book a meeting with myself. It's a 30-minute, meeting where we sit down and we really talk about how have things been going. What did you learn? What are your goals for the next term? So we mentioned the e-portfolio before. Again, I won't go into too many details with it, but basically it's a website. And so the end of term meetings are directly linked with the portfolio. So before a term comes to the end, so for example, in August, December, April, students will go through and update their portfolios, and then I will get to look at those before having those meetings. And again, it's a really nice opportunity for me to see, kind of holistically what's going on and then chat with students afterwards. And the portfolio is nice because it's a place where you've put kind of your best work or the things that you're most proud of into that. It's also got a CV. And so for different reasons, it can be a really powerful tool when you leave the program, because believe it or not, I mean, I don't know about all of you, but sometimes it's hard enough to remember last week, let alone, as the years go on and you're out of a program, you'll forget what you did or what happened in those moments. And so when you go out on an interview, for example, it's really helpful when you can provide details and depth to your responses. And I think that's where the portfolio is a really big plus. All right, so I'm going to turn it over to some colleagues in a second, but I want to now turn it over to talking about the experiences, right? The rotations, so the basic, the clinical, and then also the community one. And so all I'm going to say first is that, you've got the coursework in the background, right? And then what happens is when it comes to the rotations, we put students into small teams, usually 3 or 4 students. We have them select a field of study. So having taught in an interdisciplinary program for so many years, what I've come to realize is that breadth is important, but it's also important to be able to go in depth in an area where you can apply those skills. And so what we do is we kind of decide what our fields of study will be for the year. So for example, you can see fetal maternal, cancer, we had bone and joint, we've had respiratory, we've had neuro, we've had metabolic. And so what we do with these is we basically have students rank where they might like to, focus in that area. We bring students together based on these interests, and then the basic, the clinical, the community, as well as the capstone project, they're all done in this little cohort of students, and they're all focused under that umbrella of that field of study. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Faraj Haddad, who's going to come up, and he's just going to talk with you about the basic and the clinical rotation, because he is helping lead students through that. And then he's going to turn it over to Jed, who's going to talk to you more about the community rotation.
Thanks, Nicole. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for, joining us tonight. I'm currently the rotation coordinator for the basic science and the clinical science rotations. And so what this looks like is you choose the topic. So, whether it's fetal maternal or neuroscience or any of these topics, after students are put into their groups, they go and actually experience what it's like to be in a basic science lab that studies this topic. And so, for example, a basic science lab looking into the fetal maternal topic would be currently one of the labs is studying how nicotine exposure or how exposure to cannabis during pregnancy affects the offspring. And so the lab is already doing this work. The group of students go into the lab to sort of learn how does it function, how do the different members play a role, what kind of experiments do they do, what kind of evidence are they interested in, then the point isn't necessarily, it's to help the lab and sort of for them to get experience into how the lab functions. They work with the supervisor they work with the lab in order to sort of create something. They could be doing a literature review, or they could be even helping out with some experiments. But at the end of the day, it's about the skills that they learned and sort of the knowledge and the perspective of a basic science lab that they're going to use for their capstone project. And so that's currently, that's what it looks like. Each rotation you'll notice, so for the fall, each rotation is 2 months. So even you could consider it a little bit short, but it's actually a long time. The students actually get to experience a lot of these aspects, and it's very rich. And I meet with the students every week. I meet with all the groups, catch up, see what it's been like, help them set goals, help them make progress towards their end goal. And usually the end goal is about sort of what does the lab need and how can the student group help the lab. So that's sort of from the basic science side. From the clinical side, this again is, it looks, in principle, it's similar, but with the clinical research and the clinical clinician scientists that we're collaborating with here at the Lawson Health at Lawson and the different hospitals, this looks very different on a day-to-day basis. So with the basic science lab, there's usually a lab. You can go and see it, whereas with the clinical, it's usually different groups of clinicians and physicians working together on these, projects and these different units. So again, we're setting it up for this year, but what this looks like, it's getting in some cases, you'll be getting interaction experience with patients. You might be doing some elements of the observership. You'll be able to see clinicians in action working with the patients. And again, throughout this whole thing, one thing that, and I was just on the call with one of the clinicians, and sort of that element of mentorship really shines through. And the supervisors in both the basic and the clinical, they actually are out there to help the students achieve and achieve what they want. So, they're saying, okay, what are your goals as a team? What are your goals as individuals? How does that fit our vision and our experience and what we can offer for you as a lab? And how do we go forward from there? So again, that's sort of the general premise. Again, 2 months for the clinical rotation. And all of these skills that you're learning in both rotations, the basic science and the clinical science, will hopefully help transition you and like work towards the capstone project and the community, working with the community partners. And so, yeah, I guess as a summary, those four, the rotation objectives: observership, immersion, mentorship, and task projects, in two very different settings, but two very important settings: the clinical and the basic perspectives for, being able to understand the complexities of biomedical research and healthcare. So it's all very, very helpful to tie in together. And I think that's all I have, and I pass it along to Jed to talk about the community piece.
Perfect. Thanks, Dr. Haddad.
Slide. Oops, where's the mouse?
Perfect. Awesome. Thanks, Dr. Haddad. Again, with respect to what Dr. Haddad just talked about in terms of the basic and clinical rotations, again, a key part of our program is that interdisciplinary nature, right? Basic scientists, clinical scientists, and the community, they don't work in silos together. They operate together as a team, and they do talk to each other. So in comparison to the basic and clinical rotation, with the community engaged rotation, you sort of see that bench to bedside to community now. However, with the community rotation, you're starting off right at the beginning. So for those on this call who might be familiar with community engaged learning, it's where students and our community partners partner together to work on a project that's mutually beneficial for both parties. So obviously, as part of this program itself, by completing the rotations, you're obviously getting some course credit there, but you're also working on a project that's meaningful and will help the organization sort of achieve their priorities or strategic goals. So you can see here, as Dr. Haddad had already forwarded to, here's an example of what those rotations actually look like last year with our first cohort of students. So you can see here from the basic, the clinical, and community engaged side, you can sort of see some of those links there. I'm going to specifically target the respiratory group actually here. And thankfully, we do have somebody from the respiratory group from last year joining us on this call today, who I hope can talk about the rotation a little bit more. But you can sort of see some of the links here. You can see with the respiratory group, they were working with Dr. Grace Praga at Robarts here. They were actually working to revise and create some standard operating procedures as part of her lab protocols. They then went on for their clinical rotation to work with Dr. Michael Nicholson, who actually specializes and treats patients with cystic fibrosis. So again, our students were able to help him sort of develop this flow diagram to provide that evidence on this specific tolerance test that they were looking at. But with that, and knowing that the community engaged rotation started in September, the way we kicked this off was them working with the Middlesex London Health Unit. So they actually worked with the Southwestern Tobacco Control Area Network. And in terms of community engaged projects, again, it can range. Again, it could be a program evaluation, as you can probably see with some of these rotations here. It can also involve maybe working on social media strategies, marketing and recruitment. It can also involve creating educational workshops or sessions for that community partner. Again, it could range, but again, when it comes to the deliverables, we want it to sort of be a good mix and match of different things. But knowing that each group is going to be working within that field of study, but also working towards a specific deliverable for that partner as well. So you can see here with the respiratory group, they did help out with those social media strategies and making sure they can sort of communicate what the tobacco control area network was doing at their work, but also helping to revise to make things a little bit more current, knowing, again, this tobacco control area network was very much focused on smoking in general, tobacco smoking, but knowing sort of the recent rises in cannabis use, vaping as well. Again, there's that need to have those revisions as well. So again, we can probably post this as we mentioned earlier. We'll probably send out these slides later on, but I'm hoping this all gives you a little bit of a taste of what those rotations could actually look like during the year if you do join our program in the future. With that, I will pass it on to Dr. Nguyen to talk about the capstone project.
Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Nguyen. I'm a new member of this group, and I just joined the program in August. And to be honest, from day one, I just started enjoying being part of this program, working with a group of very energetic, committed, and responsible and professional individuals. So what I'm doing here, I'm teaching a bunch of courses, and also will be teaching some of these courses or blocks for the master's program as well. One of my responsibilities is taking care of the capstone project. I started working with the second group of our master's students and enjoying working with them. Capstone project, if I want to explain this project for you, is that although there's no thesis in this master program, but this is a kind of a process or kind of activity that students are trying to identify specific problems or wicked problems associated with discipline. It can be any of the 5 different disciplines that Dr. Campbell explained to you. And after picking one of those topics that is of their interest in groups, identify the different stakeholders or groups of specialties, including physicians, including researchers, including institutions, funding agencies, or community members or groups that can be involved or can be considered involved in the process or dealing with that wicked problem. And through that, they learn how every single discipline is involved or can be involved, and can be also practically being their collaboration or cooperation can be used in order to tackle that problem in an interdisciplinary approach. So doing this activity of doing this kind of project, you are learning many things. First of all, you're working in groups, and you are through group work, you can learn group dynamics. You learn project management, and in this way, you could definitely understand how a project can be started and nurtured and eventually developed and improved all the way to the end. During this process, in 3 different steps or stages, I will work with you along the way so that you could conveniently go through this process. For sure, when I was since I've started working with our students here, I see that they're extremely enthusiastic. They're extremely engaged in the process. They are most of them, the main engine of this activity. But I'm also, looking at their work, trying to provide all the help and recommendations and suggestions that can help them refine the work they are doing. And they're doing very, very good job so far. So another interesting thing that I see in here is that you are learning how to write. You're learning how to connect different parts of the or disciplines to each other, and how to have an interdisciplinary way of thinking, and how to bring all of this together in order to reach to your goal. During these 3 steps, you refine and refine and refine, and eventually you get to the point that you excel in the work that you're doing, and you end up with a final report of what you create in the end. So in this way, you learn a lot. You've been exposed to different disciplines. You saw how they can help with the process. You even see the problems in system. Some of you might not think that we have many problems in the system, healthcare system, that you people can come and identify and help to resolve. And that is another thing that they do. We have a group of students right now that are, communicating with the specialists in the field in the country and also outside the country, and they're gathering information, and that is a very good thing. Remember, this can be your future job, that can be your future connection, that would be your network in future. So through doing this activity, you are learning a lot from different angles, and I think it's a very very interesting aspect of this program. That is what I have to offer. Thank you.
Okay. And now I am up next. So my name is Jennifer Franco, and I am the program coordinator. I think I've emailed some of you already that are joining us today. I'm Jennifer. Oh. I need the microphone adjusted there. Hopefully now everyone can hear me. So I'm just going to go over some of the application details, admission requirements. I know our application deadline, especially for international students, is coming up December 1st. Hopefully some of our international applicants were able to join today. So essentially, as you can see, the deadline is January 10th for our domestic students, but December 1st for international students. We do have 2 stages of the application. Stage 1 is where you submit all of your documents. We go through to see, the averages and things like that. So it's a preliminary assessment. And then for stage 2 is where we actually do the video interview invites. So for those of you that have not really explored our website yet, we're a unique program where we do ask you to do a video interview. It is a pre-recorded one, it's not live, and we do it through a video recruiter platform. So any students moving beyond the first stage after we go over your written information that you have submitted, your CV, things like that, then we invite you to the second stage. So to break it down, just so that, especially for international students, where the deadline is coming up a little bit quicker, because we know that you have to get all of your documents in order if you're traveling, we are hoping to have decisions or invitations for international students sent out by the end of December, and then actually send out offers of admission to international students by end of January. And for the domestic students, as your deadline is a little bit later in January, you would hopefully, if you're moving on to the second stage of that video interview, we would be communicating that invite by the end of January, and then hope to have any admission offers sent out by late February, maybe early March. One thing that I wanted to touch upon, though, with our application, we do know that there's always students that are applying to various different programs. So one of them being med school. So because of the timing, we start in May, and because of the timing, that can sometimes cause issues if students are still waiting to hear from other programs. So what we ask you is, once we start making those offers of admission, if you are one of those students that is waiting to hear from another professional school, what we ask you to do is we will have a wait list going, rather than accept the offer and then have to withdraw it later. If you could instead notify us, just be transparent, let us know that you are waiting on another school. We completely understand that. And then what we can do is we can put you on our wait list. And just so that you know, last year we moved through everybody on the wait list. So any students that were asking to be put on the wait list temporarily until they saw what happened, we ended up being able to go back to everybody on the wait list and make offers of admission again. So it is a relatively quick moving process, and that is better than you accepting and then we're getting ready to start the program and then we have students dropping out. So that's kind of what we ask our applicants to do and how we would like to run our admissions process. And next is just a little bit about admission requirements. Again, this is all up on our website. And what I will do is tomorrow I will send up a follow-up email to everybody that had registered for the session, and I can provide you with the link to our video that we recorded today. The recording will be turned off after our presentation, but then you can review the slides, and also I can send you our website link where all of this is posted. One thing that I do have some students or applicants asking is about the CV. We do have a template on our website, and we do ask students to please use that template. Do not submit anything that is outside of that template, as it will not be accepted. So make sure that you take some time to go through our website and see what it is that is required, and just stick to that. I know some students were saying that if you run out of room, we do just want the 2 pages of the template. So just try to work from the most recent experiences or jobs that you have had and just move down until you have filled that up. And I think that's about it. I'm going to keep it kind of relatively short for this so that we have time to move to our question and answer. Next, this is our first cohort of students that graduated this in June 2022. And we do actually have 3 students on call with us today. We have Emma, Hao, and Tamina, who are going to speak about their experiences, I guess. I'll let Dr. Campbell introduce them a little bit more.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, so just a couple quick questions. I mean, it would be great if there's anything on your mind, if you can put it in the chat, then the students who are joining us might even be able to answer questions and also talk about their experiences. But if we just start with hearing about their experiences, then that's fine as well. So I was gonna hope to hear kind of 2 minutes from each of them about that if we don't have questions, but I'm going to pause for a second and just see if there's any questions. The other piece is, when it comes to your application, it's not a difficult application, but I would say make sure you really read the questions. We do tend to get people who are maybe just recycling a different application, and you can't really do that, right? So if you are serious about the program and you want to be considered, then make sure that you're, actually, targeting what you need to, as opposed to, for example, submitting something that you submitted for another program, because chances are it just won't hit the criteria when we're going through it. That's what we've noticed in the past. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. So what we'll do is we will turn to our participants here. So we've, like Jen said, we've got Emma, we've got Hao, and we've got Tamina. And so who wants to go first? And again, if we can do kind of a 2 minute from each of you, then maybe that will spark some questions. And if not, then maybe we can add some other pieces to that. Okay, Emma, I'm going to pick on you to go first, please, if you don't mind.
No worries. Yeah. Well, it's great to be here. I'm very excited that I was invited to come out and answer any of the questions that you might have. It's great to share an opportunity of some of my experiences that I've had with the Master's of Science in IMS program. It was really a great year overall. Seeing this picture really reflects back on some of the memories that we had. So I don't know if you'd like me to go into a specific experience right now or anything about me in particular.
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, Emma, I think, what's one piece that maybe you want to share in terms of, that future students would, want to hear about. So maybe something that stands out to you, or something that you think you'll take away in terms of your next piece, or maybe your goals, whatever you're comfortable with.
Sure. Yeah, so the program really helped me in a lot of ways. And I find just looking at this picture, I'm sort of reminded about how much teamwork and especially in our capstone project, I worked with 2 other classmates who I'm still friends with today. And you really sort of get a great like way to build relationships outside and inside of the academic environment. And I found that that's really something that I really took away from the program. I would say that if I to pick one thing, I really enjoyed having like those block courses, really like sort of an intense course in that like blocked in a month. And that really allowed me to really like be curious about the content, and I really was able to dive into that. So that was really interesting. And then I think the experiential rotations, which was already kind of briefly talked about, was really great. I've had an opportunity in the basic science rotation to be in the lab even during COVID, so that was really great. I had practice with Western blotting, as well as practice with using microscopic instruments to take pictures of cells, and that was an amazing experience because I hadn't had that in-depth experience before. And so yeah, this was just a sort of just looking at the chat to see if there's any questions, but that was just some of the experiences that I've had, and maybe Hal or Tamana would like to share anything of their experience.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, thank you, Emma, and we might come back to you. So how, do you mind maybe telling the class about what your next chapter looks like and some of maybe what you think will stand out from the program and how it will help you be successful in your career?
Yeah, no problem. Hi, everyone. My name is Hal. And honestly, just by hearing this presentation, from the bottom of my heart, I was like, I don't mind doing this all over again because I know it will be a completely different experience, and it will be a different experience for different person. And that's the whole point of this program, is you can develop your own relationship with your team members. You develop your own relationship with different rotations, and you get this flexibility piece during all this rotation where you communicate with your supervisor to see what you are really interested in doing. So for me, I was in the respiratory group, and our group was doing a lot of different stuff. In lab, we were focusing on the SOPs that Jed was talking about. And for our clinical rotation, and both for our laboratory and clinical rotation, we had the chance to shadow for patient visit, which were very cool to see how it's being conducted in the actual field. We get to interact with patient to see what their daily life is like, living with a certain disease. We also get to know how different machines are being operated and what's the uses for different machines. As well, for the community rotation, which is a full year rotation, we're really fortunate to work with Middlesex Health Unit, which we are still working with today. So we continued with this professional relationship, and they offered a youth worker position to us, in which we help with conducting research on tobacco and cannabis studies. What we do is also, I believe it's still one of the courses being offered for IMS, is communicating science to the general audience, which we were able to apply what we've learned in the course and use it in our real life. So we were able to go through different literature and narrow down it to the point in which we worked with policymakers and graphic designers into a comic strip, and we'll be able to tell the general audience and our target audience to see what the most important message is. For example, how many percentage of smokers could get a certain disease, or like what's the general annual expense on tobacco. So we get the stats and we get the important message out to the target demographic. Yes, so I would say it is an amazing adventure, and whatever things that you face would be a part of your experience. And it's okay that it seems might be uncertain, or you're not sure what you might be interested in, but the piece of unknown, it brings excitement, and I feel like that will be a really interesting part of your journey. So that's basic for me. And oh yeah, sorry, just a bit about my background. If I didn't say, I did graduate from Western medical science, and I was in interdisciplinary medical science for my undergrad specialization as well. And I did really treasure this interdisciplinary like thinking and working that makes who I am. And currently, I'm doing a Master of Teaching program at UFT. And just Dr. Campbell was talking about education. I just got excited, and I see this piece in which every puzzle just works well together, and it really diversity, equality, just every other piece. I was able to bring what I learned from this program and contribute to my current master program as well, and especially from more science specific, I would say medical science specific point of view. For example, we were talking about some equity diversity work in science research, which other students in my program may not be familiar with, and I was able to share that with all of them, and they were really interested in the topics and information that I was sharing about. So just that's what I have to share, and I hope that everyone would be interested in this program. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Hao. And Hao, if you become a teacher, my greatest wish is that my kids get to work with you one day. Tamana, what about from you?
Yeah, just hello everyone. My name's Tamana. Just echoing off of what Hao said, I definitely think one of the major highlights of this program is that flexibility. So from my background, I was definitely interested in medicine, but I knew like one avenue I really wanted to explore more and develop was that project management side, especially in a healthcare or medical setting. And so looking through all the different master's programs available, the reason why IMS caught my eye is because it let you grow towards medicine, but also let you develop those skills and make those connections and explore those experiences that would open your eyes towards other avenues that are also possible. And so I think because of the features of the program, such as that capstone project where you're working with a group and you're leading your own initiative, and then also those rotations where you get to meet all these different professionals, learn from them, have them as mentors, and then also the structure of the program as a whole, like throughout the year, having those block courses that are all so diverse in what they're teaching and what they're emphasizing. And then also the marking scheme, for example, giving you that flexibility to really have the space to make mistakes and learn from them. I think all three of those combined really fosters an environment for you to grow and learn. And that helps you make those choices later on of what kind of avenue you want to go down. Me personally, after I graduated, I applied to project management streams at hospitals, and that's where I'm currently working right now. And after graduating, it's definitely a lot more clear. And I'm just like so thankful of like the experiences I've had during my program, because all of those, even like the little things such as creating an e-portfolio or having those progress reports, they translate so well in a more corporate setting, and they really set you up to have those experiences so you can be successful in that environment.
Amazing. Thank you so very much. And you can tell by my, kind of random questions, we didn't prep them at all. We just said, talk about, your experience. And it's so amazing that they, come back and want to share their experiences and, their passion for the project. And I can't say enough, like our faculty, our staff, like people really, truly love being involved with this program. And I think, it's been a tough couple of years, especially in education, but this program was always the piece that gave us energy and, kind of just gave us a little bit of hope in terms of things that were coming up. So I'd love to answer some questions, and I see there was one question already in the chat. So if you don't have the chat open, the question was about the number of spots. So especially the first year we had to start that summer online, so we were a little bit smaller, 15. This year we were 16 students, but as Jen mentioned in the chat, we are hoping to grow our cohort. We want to make sure that we can still maintain the interactive and the mentorship and the networking that we currently offer. And so we do want to grow slightly, but I think, we've got quite a few partners who are wanting to work with our students. I want to share that I got an email from one of the clinical partners that just told me that the paper is about to be published. So 8 weeks clinical rotation, people often said to me, what could they possibly do in 8 weeks, right? And the fact of the matter is that when you bring a small group of students together, there's a synergy, there's their focus, they, have these skills, they've been in the program, especially when January comes around. And I was just so delighted to hear from one of the clinicians that the work is about to be published. And I think, that's a rare thing to do in a 2-year master's, let alone a 1-year. But again, I think it speaks to the dedication, the authentic aspect as well. Yeah, so we've got a question about the GPA, right? And again, it's one of those things. So when we're first looking, it's not as if we just accept people who have the highest average. We don't believe that necessarily, translates to who's going to be the most successful in the program. And so Jen showed you on that previous slide, and I guess maybe I can go back, maybe. So you can see here that, we have a minimum, right? And we have a, cutoff, and we do look to see, we want to make sure that you'll be successful, right? So we might look back to see some of your grades in certain courses, but here you can see it's the 2 most recent years. And again, not just pulling people with the academic average. Yes, you need to meet the threshold, but we put a lot of weight in stage 1 in terms of the little mini essay that you write on a wicked problem, and then also about why you want to be in the program. And again, if it's something that's just recycled and doesn't even make sense, then that's not going to be, as strong, even if you have a really high GPA. And so that is a really, really important piece for us. So another question about referees. So as someone who writes like literally over 100 reference letters a year, it was like my, absolute mission statement to say, we are not asking for letters up front. So the nice thing is that when you do apply to the program, you're in complete control of it, especially for stage 1. So as long as you check all the boxes and you do your essays, then you're good. If then you go to the stage 2, at that point, if you're being considered, so if we're about to make you an offer, then Jen will be asking for some names of people. And again, we don't want, necessarily the full letter, and educators and faculty have thanked us and said, thank you for, doing it this way. So really, we're going to ask for some people to vouch for you. It's going to be a pretty straightforward process. So I think the way to approach it is for stage 1. Don't worry too much about that. In then the early new year, we will reach out to you for those names so that you can, ask them. And then if you're again considered, then we will actually contact them. So really just trying to be practical with everything and not have you having to chase down reference letters, because we've also heard from students, it's been hard to get to know faculty, especially during the pandemic. And so we really don't want to put anyone at a disadvantage in terms of that. Very good questions. We've got a question about the essay for the wicked problem. And, it's a really good question about citations. And I'm trying to remember, Jen, I think we see, typically, yes, we would see citations, right? Because odds are you're going to be pulling information from somewhere. It's, a 1-page, wicked problem. We do say, don't talk about COVID, because I think everyone's, maybe would write about that if they could, or maybe people are done, writing about that or reading about it. But either way, we do say anything but. And yeah, you would want to have, you could have, for example, the citations, a works cited spill onto the 2nd page, for example. And so, yeah, always really good to show those academic skills as well, and to make sure that you have those in there. So really good question. Yes, absolutely. So in terms of these essays though, and can it include personal anecdotes? Absolutely. So, we're not trying to be stuffy with these requests. We are looking for you to showcase your writing skills, your critical thinking skills, your synthesis skills. And so that being said, if there are pieces that, kind of spill over from, your personal life or some of your previous educational experiences, I would say you can absolutely add that in. Still, make most of the focus on the academic writing piece. We see a lot of students bring in kind of more personal anecdotes with the second one, which is, why do you want to be in this program? Some students might, it shows whether they've, done their homework to look at the site to see what it's all about. A lot of students that talk about what their future aspirations are, or maybe they don't know what they want to do, and that's also why they're interested. So we're not looking for one answer. My little kind of, tip or word of advice, especially with the wicked problem, is you have to really search about what is a wicked problem, right? So for example, a disease on its own is not a wicked problem, right? Now, the good thing is that when you're in the program, we do unpack wicked problems quite a bit. We start in June and it's a major focus all the way through. But, really dig deep into that as well and get some examples of, the problem as opposed to just, saying, for example, cardiovascular disease, that's still the topic or, the disease, but it's not the problem. Any other questions, or if you want to hear something from our students who are on, please feel free to also ask a question. We did have this booked, I think, for a little bit longer, so we'll stay on as long as we have to, but also want to recognize that it is November and you've probably got a lot of things on your plate. It's okay. I think they like to hear the answers to the questions. Yeah, if we're okay to keep the recording, we can always cut it afterwards if we need to. The chat doesn't show up on the recording as an FYI. So, and you can also send your question privately to our, the name, which is the MSc IMS program, if you don't want to post it, right away. Okay, yeah, good question about the timing. So here's the thing. With our program, we thought long and hard about, are we going to start in May or are we going to start in September? And there was a lot of factors that went into that decision. And so for us, we are a May start date, but we do wait until, because May kind of, when you look at the calendar, has anywhere from, 4 to 5 weeks, the way it's split. So we kind of wait till after that second week. So there is a little bit of a break. I can also say that our summer pace is not nearly as intense as the fall and winter pace. So we don't have any rotations happening in the summer. So it's a lot more of a linear process. You're in a course one at a time. There's not those competing, overlapping responsibilities or priorities happening. And so it is a slower pace. Although I think the students would tell you it still felt fast until they then experienced the fall and winter. But you also get better at managing complexity, right? So there's lots of reasons why we do it the way we do. So you will have a little bit of a break. It's not a long break, but it does mean that you are then, not going through the following summer. So if you're going on to another program or you're looking for a summer job or something afterwards, then that does mean you're done by April of the following year. So basically we start I would say in the teens in May, and then we go till, I would say again, the teens in April, in terms of all the things that we have to, do in terms of the in-person pieces. Okay, so question about an option to TA, very good question. So there are TA positions at Schulich, and then there are TA positions, for example, in the Faculty of Science at Western. And so I can tell you that we had 2 students last year in the cohort who had TA positions through biology. So the way that it tends to work at Schulich, and things can always change, but we do have quite a few of the thesis-based students. And so what that means is they, based on their funding packages, there will be a priority there. But that being said, I know that some of our students have been TAs for biology in the past. But again, recognizing it's challenging because as you start to add on the different rotations and, the courses and all the meetings you're going to be having and working on your capstone project, it can be hard to then have every week a commitment. Let's say if you're in an undergrad lab or something like that. So not impossible, but definitely requires some coordination. And then in terms of funding and grants, the program is OSAP eligible. So I think that's a really important piece to recognize. And then other than that, Jen?
The microphone so you can hear me. There is this SOGS bursary that students can apply to as well. And there's also the Ontario Graduate Scholarship. So there's nothing specific to our program, but there are some funding opportunities. International students, I would say contact Western International, and I can give that as part of the links that I send when I follow up with you tomorrow. So I can send you some of those links where you can look into some of the different funding options. One thing I forgot to mention while I'm up here is that this year or for this upcoming cycle, we're also going to be inviting students on a case-by-case basis to do live interviews to just informally, and I should say that the recorded interviews are also kind of informal. I mean, obviously you get to prepare on the spot, but Dr. Campbell and I, just to kind of vet students a little bit better and get to know students after we have watched your other recorded interview and read over your application. So some of you, so don't be surprised. And that's just an opportunity for you as well to ask us one-on-one if you have any questions. We've had students in the past when we're going through our admission cycle wanting to ask questions and meet with us personally. So we thought that we would kind of provide that for students ahead of time. So there will be that as well. And obviously, if you were one of those students that definitely wanted to meet with us, then just send me an email and we can always arrange that.
Yeah, no, such a good point, because, you know, we're vetting you, but you need to vet us too, right? And you need to make sure that this is where you want to be. Just coming back to the funding piece, I think quite a few people, I mean, Emma, How, Tamana, I think some people had some part-time jobs as well, volunteer activities. Again, not impossible. You know, coming back to those project management skills are going to be critical, right? To balance all of that, but definitely not impossible. And I know students were, you know, especially if they were still wanting to pursue further education, that was a priority to make sure that they could still do those things. And so I would say as long as you have some flexibility with that and your academic piece can be the priority, then that's a possibility as well. Do you want any kind of direct questions for the former students who are on the call right now? So I'll just share one piece. I mean, so when I was doing the end of term meetings in April of this year, so the first cohort was, you know, finishing up. And what I was blown away by is that, you know, a lot of people, I think actually almost everyone, had a job in medical sciences, right? Had something that they were going to either for the summer or, you know, for the year. And that's the part that I've been so impressed with. And I think Tamana was talking about this as well. And obviously, maybe those aren't their forever jobs or their forever careers, but I think it just really spoke to the fact that, you know, students are not only getting the skills, but they're getting the confidence and they're knowing how to articulate that in a job application. And then again, at an interview cycle. I can't say enough how important that is. I mean, you all probably have heard, you know, when any job is posted, there tends to be quite a few applications. And so finding ways to stand out. A couple of people also shared with me after having the full year in the program, and then, for example, applying to medical school this year, how they just had this completely different view and felt that their applications were quite strong. And so I'm really excited to hear on the news in terms of, you know, if they're getting those interviews in the winter, which I'm sure many of them will. And again, if they're going to be admitted to those programs. So I think that that's another piece that, you know, really just understanding more about yourself and, you know, the strengths that you have is so important. And we don't do that enough in our programs. Okay, so yeah, so question on there is just saying for each of you, yeah, so what are your plans going forward and did they change since you finished? So Emma, can we hear from you? What's your plan or what's your hope?
Yes, sure. So yeah, my hope is going into medicine in the future. So I did apply this fall, and that's the hope. Right now, I'm actually, after I graduated from the master's program, like Dr. Campbell mentioned, was fortunate to get a research assistant position here at Western for the Department of Cardiology. Under the supervision of a cardiologist, and also at the Department of Research and Education and Research Innovation at Western. So I've been really enjoying that position, and I think it's really it's a different pace outside of education and outside of the academics. But I think my future plans didn't change too much since going into the master's. Still feel very strongly about going into medicine, but my research interests have sort of expanded, and being in this research assistant position has really been really fruitful in giving me opportunities and ways to learn more about research outside of the academic setting. So
amazing. How? What about from you?
For me, I just have this, well, I've always had this interest in education, I would say, especially going from a different educational system from, I'm an immigrant from China to Canada. This whole childhood experience, I rooted in my heart. I do want to go into the education field. So that's why I applied to this my current program, Master of Teaching at University of Toronto, and I did really enjoy the interaction with students and also with other teachers as well. But if you ask me if I will do I will be a teacher, like a high school teacher for the rest of my life, I would say I'm really still open to all possibilities. Maybe one day I find a interest in research I just really want to pursue. I will come back to continue my studies in academia, or if I just want to pursue medicine in further, and that could also be a possibility. I just, at this stage of my life, I do really want to be immersed in the teaching field, and that's just what I want to do, and I'm just doing that. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Hao. And I think, yeah, it was way back in science communication, the first block course where we all kind of said Hao should be in education. He has a way with, communicating complex ideas and creativity and all those pieces. So amazing. And Tamana, what about from you?
Yeah, coming into the program, I was looking into both medicine and project management. Those were my two goals. And then as for when I finished, I am similar to Emma. I am applying this year, but I'm also working in a project management office. So I guess both are in progress. But just speaking on the experiences and how they morphed my goals, just on the rotations, the experiences I've had, like we had physicians that were available to us as mentors, and just learning through them and their day-to-day experience, learning how they got to where they were. I just learned that it is a more long-term goal. So you have to stick to it, continuously work on it. So just learning from them, I think what changed by the time I finished is just I'm just more strongly passionate towards that goal, and I have a more longer term idea of what I want to do to get there, while also still being realistic in the terms of I want to still continue building my career on the side as I'm working towards other goals as well. So that's what I would say for what changed as I finished.
Amazing. Thank you, Tamana. And I think every year when we see the stats on, for example, professional schools, more and more people are having master's degrees or PhDs, right? And I think it's such an important lesson that sometimes it's hard. We think we just need to get to that next step, but sometimes, the long game is, ends up being the short game. And so, yeah, I think that's a really important aspect, and, recognizing that all these pieces are building along the way. There was just one more question about specific experiences. Honestly, no, when Jen and I are going through them initially, again, we want to select people who want to be here and who think it's the right place for them. We want to have people who bring different perspectives, diversity of thought, having voices in the classroom that are not homogeneous are extremely important to us. We want students to learn from each other and also to learn from the students. So we don't have anything in particular. It truly is a holistic application. And so, like I said, if you're really interested and you put in the work to apply, my guess is, you'll have a really good chance at being successful. In terms of the question about how many apply, that obviously changes from year to year. But like what Jen was saying, this past year, we were able to kind of make our way and offer through our wait list. And so we're anticipating that, we'll be able to do that as well. And especially because we plan to grow a little bit over the next little couple years, we're not really worried about it. I mean, as you can imagine with any program, the numbers that apply are kind of hard to make any sense of anyways, because there's a lot of people who just put their name in for an application, just to kind of be safe, cover their bases, and maybe aren't even necessarily, focused there. And every program sees that. So I think that one's a tough one to say, but otherwise I would, every year we have got more and more, which is great. It means hopefully that people are finding out about the program and they're hearing now from our former students who have had good experience. And yeah, there's a question for Emma. Did you have research experience prior to coming into the program? And I'll say that Emma also worked as a research assistant with me, January, February to April kind of thing. So yeah, so Emma, did you have experience in your undergrad?
Yeah, so I did have 1 year of an experience during my 4th year. I did do a thesis project with a lab. It was during the beginning of the pandemic though, so it was all online. So in terms of my research experience, it wasn't as much as it is now, but I did have a little bit of experience with that in my undergrad because I did a thesis. But you know, if you're looking to this program and still considering, I think you still get so much breadth of research experience and learning about if research is for you as well. If you're thinking about it, I think this program really shines light on different aspects of research, especially in my undergrad. I only got just kind of like a little bit of a hint of what research is like, and now knowing a little bit more, it really is so. It was great to get to know that a little bit more in depth in the master's program, and of course now in my research assistant position. So yeah, great question.
Yeah, amazing, Emma. And I think, there's a little bit of a misconception if you've been in any sort of science, medical science undergrad program. I think there is this tendency to think of research as, pipette in hand at a lab bench, right? And so, we do very little of that type of research, I would say, right? We're more focused on, kind of the broader perspective. Absolutely, you are going to have some experience in a lab. We actually in the summer have like a lab boot camp just to get people kind of refreshed on their skills. But I think it's acknowledging that research goes beyond that. And I think for a lot of students, yeah, their experiences have been quite limited and maybe in areas or realms that they just didn't see themselves applying it in the future. Whereas, for example, the skills, Emma worked with myself, she's now working with someone else. And let's say, in however many years when she's a physician, then, she'll probably come back to those skills and bring them to that field as well. And so I think that it's really, again, remember that one of our goals is research literacy. And I think that that's an important part of it. Any final questions, thoughts, anyone? We'll keep an eye on the chat a little bit. And I know I'm looking the other way and the camera's here, but the screen's to my left. So I apologize for that. All right. Well, as Jen mentioned, she's going to follow up with everyone. Thank you so much for just, attending, making time for this. We hope to see your applications coming in, or even that we see you in the program next year. And yeah, if you have any follow-up questions, or, you need to arrange a call with myself and Jen, just let us know. We're happy to do that. But hopefully, hopefully it was helpful and informative. And yeah, good luck on your journey with your next chapter. And if you don't know what that is, don't worry about that either, right? There's a lot of pressure to know what's next, and don't put too much pressure on yourselves. Stay well, stay healthy. Good luck in your courses as they wrap up. And yeah, we hope to see you in one capacity or another in the near future. All right. And thank you so much, Emma, Howe, and Tamana. Really, really appreciate it. We'll hang on the Zoom in case someone's maybe a little bit shy to ask some questions. So we'll keep it on for a little bit. Have a good night, everyone. All right, I will stop the recording.